Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today is day 57 of our 100 days of DevOps. So today we are going to be looking at a concept that as a DevOps engineer or as a cloud engineer, it is one of the non-negotiables. It is something that you're supposed to, you know, and you're supposed to maybe it, be good at, right? Because without this understanding, you may miss out on a lot of things and then you commit a lot of blunder. And what am I trying to talk about today? What we're going to look at today is what we call monitoring. As a DevOps engineer or as a cloud engineer, working with Azure, working with other platforms, monitoring is something that you really need to um, spend some time to actually learn because it's going to save you a ton of things. Imagine if you have if maybe a VM goes down or something happens and you didn't set up proper monitoring for that particular resource. How would you know that has happened? If it happens by 2 a.m. in the night and then there's no proper monitoring set up for that, how will you know something has gone wrong so that you'll be able to fix it, right? In a production environment, you don't want something like that to happen, and that is why I'm specifically making a video for monitoring so that I can just cover the little that we can cover in this particular aspect. Now, why is the need for monitoring? Like I said, most times there might be unforeseen circumstances that I want to lead to maybe a pod crashing, a cluster going down, maybe a VM having issues, a web app having issues, and you can't always be on the portal 247 to keep monitoring this thing, to keep looking at it. Even if you're on the portal, how many of these resources are you going to be looking at? Because obviously you will have a lot of resources that you're managing, right, in a production environment. The reason why in our own setup, what we only have is our VM and all of that, just the VM. So it's easier to monitor when what we have is just one resource. And even if it's one resource, it's a tasking job to always, how many hours will you stay on the portal and then keep monitoring and keep refreshing and keep checking and all of that to ensure that it's working fine. And that is why it's good to set up monitoring tools that would enable, automated incident response, automated collection of data, of metrics of log, and then sending alerts to wherever or whatever channel that you have configured, and then you can take proactive decisions to ensure that you don't have any issues, right? So now, when we created our virtual machine, right? When we created our virtual machine, it wasn't only the virtual machine that was created. I hope you remember that when we created the virtual machine, we had um we had things like we had the IP, we had NSG, we had what else do we have? We have the disk and some other things. Now, apart from now, this is a single virtual machine that still has other components, right? Apart from this single virtual machine that has other components, there are still other things outside of the virtual machine. For example, you may have we've created a storage account, right? We created a storage account. We've created what else have we created? We've created some other things. We created what have we created again? What have we created? We created back we did the backups. So the other resources basically for you to, for you to create, you can create a web app, you can create so many things. And you really want to um, monitor all of these resources, right? You want to monitor all of these resources. And Azure has made sure that there are some monitoring tools that we can use, to monitor these resources. There is no one fit all. You can't use just one monitoring tool to monitor everything. Though some people try to do that, but I mean, there are some tools that are best fit for some kind of resources, and I'm just going to be um, covering that in this short videos. So I'm going to introduce us to about four different tools that we can use. The first one is the most obvious one. right, is the Azure Monitor. So basically, the Azure Monitor is like a um let's say Azure's central monitoring tool, which you can use to monitor several resources, and get so many things. And when you go to documentation, you can monitor applications, you can monitor virtual machines, you can monitor guest operating system, you can monitor containers, you can monitor databases, you can monitor events, you can monitor network and all of that. So this is basically how the Azure Monitor workflow works. It gets data sources from applications or workload or infrastructure or even the platform itself, whatever. There are so many ways Azure Meta can get, data source from, and then it gathers the metrics, it gathers the logs, it gathers traces or any changes, and then it can be consumed by, insights. You can get from the container for virtual machine, network, and all of that, and then you can also visualize it. It has inbuilt workbooks, dashboards, Power BI, Grafana, all these are visualization tools. You can also analyze this from there using the metric explorer, log analytics, change analytics, and response. When I mean response, it means like creating like an alert for you to be able to respond. And apart from that, you can integrate other tools to your Azure Monitor, like your Event Hub, your Azure Storage, your function apps, Azure DevOps, GitOps, and all of that. So basically, Azure Monitor is like Azure's number one monitoring tool that you can use to monitor several resources. And if you go to the Azure portal, you can click on monitor. So with the monitoring, you can see so many things that you can monitor: application insights, container insight, VM insight, network insight, and all of that. So yeah, you have a lot of things that you can monitor here from this place, even the managed service and all of that. So this is an overview of the Azure Monitor. You can set up alerts, there's metrics, there's logs, and a lot of things that you can actually do with the Azure Monitor. So moving on, this is basically just going to be like an overview video. We won't be doing so much hands-on this video, and we'll be doing it because they are literally like no resources apart from my virtual machine to set up some kind of things or to do some POCs or to do some hands-on on. So it will just be me running down these tools, I'll give you an overview of these tools. Then along the line, there might be now videos, the more we deploy things, the more we are able to effectively monitor them. So along the line, we might have more hands-on videos, more intensive videos. But from your own end, you can still deploy things and set up all of this. You have the documentation pages for that, which is a guide, and then it's a free account. Basically, you can just play around with it. You're not going to get charged, at least within the first 30 days. You're not going to be using any of your money. So you can, play around, get familiarized with all of this and deploy things, monitor it, set up agents and stuff like that. So yeah, that is basically Azure Monitor. I'm covering this first because it is like Azure's biggest monitoring tool that you can use. It covers a lot of things. Now, the second thing I'm going to talk about is the network watcher. Now, although Azure Monitor can do a lot of these things, there are some tools that are specific to some kind of things, right? When you come to anything that pertains networking, your IP address, your MSG, and all of that, your IP flow and stuff like that, Network Watcher is best designed for anything network related or anything networking related, right? You can still use your Azure Monitor to do some of these things, but then these tools have been specifically designed and have been optimized to fit this purpose, right? So Watcher basically has been designed to do anything that has to do or to monitor anything that has to do with um networking, right? And we'll notice when you created your virtual machine, if you notice that another resource group was created, I don't know if you remember that another resource group was created, which is the network water resource group. So once you create a resource such as virtual machine, automatically, automatically a network water resource group is created, and then a network water is deployed to monitor the network on that virtual machine. You can see a network water has been deployed in the West Europe region. So it is going to monitor, you know, all the resources you create in West Europe region. It will monitor it. And if you keep taking, details, if you keep taking logs, if you keep taking metrics, and it's going to put it in what we call a network portal. This is just um, this is a network portal resource group, and then one network portal has been deployed. But and we can still go and search for network portal. So we want to come to the network portal page, and we have obviously the one that is currently watching over my VM. We have that. Now under network water, we have the monitoring. You can check the topology, you can monitor the connection, you can monitor traffic, you can monitor IP, you can monitor energy diagnostic, you can monitor Nest Hub, VPN troubleshooting, connection troubleshooting, anything you want to monitor that is network related, right? We have the documentation over here. So it can monitor connection. It has different inbuilt tools that helps, to do all of this. In terms of monitoring, there's a connection monitor, there's topology, which can be used in the monitoring aspect, right? You can see it here. Network monitor consists of three major sets of tools and capabilities. The first is monitoring, which is connection monitor and topology. The next is network diagnostic tool, which are all of this here, energy diagnostic, IP flow verify, and all of that. And then you can monitor traffic, which is the flow log and the traffic analysis, which is exactly what we have, you know, here. We have the monitoring, we have the network diagnostic tools, we have metrics, and we have the logs, flow logs, and all of that. So you can use all of this to monitor, you know, um, anything network related, right? Anything that has to do with your network or networking in Azure can be used. The network portal is best suited for this, right? So the third thing I'm going to talk about as DevOps engineer, one of the things we are going to work with is Kubernetes, right? We work with our clusters, we work with pods, and we work with control planes, worker nodes, and all of that. Now, even though the Azure Monitor can do that, there's a tool that is best suited for anything Kubernetes related, right? And that tool is Prometheus. Prometheus. When we look at the Kubernetes section of, or when we get to Kubernetes phase of 100 days, we'll look at this the more, right? Prometheus is best suited for to monitor your pod, to monitor your what do you call it now? Your nodes, right? You can integrate Prometheus with Azure Monitor, and you can watch over your pods. And Azure has a managed Prometheus service. When I come here, Azure has a managed Prometheus service. You won't see anything here because we don't have any clusters set up, right? We don't have any clusters set up. So if we had a cluster now, then you can just use the managed Prometheus service to monitor everything that's pertains to Kubernetes, right? And we have the Grafana. Grafana basically is like a visualization tool that integrates with Prometheus, right? To display those metrics that have been collected by Prometheus. Grafana just displays it. And even if you come down to Azure Monitor, you can also see it under Managed Service. You can see Manage Prometheus. You can see Manage Grafana. So it's all of this as a part of Azure Monitor, right? All this as a part of Azure Monitor, and they are just different components that is best suited for different um, different resources that you create on Azure. And finally, one more monitoring tool that I will also want us to get familiar with is the application insights. Application insight. So for this, anything that has to do with web apps, that's to do with your application. To monitor the status or the health of your application. You need application insight to actually monitor anything application related, right? So if you've deployed an application using maybe a web app, a function app, and all of that, you can create an application insight and then use it to monitor that particular application. And to for application insight to work, you need what we call a log analytics workspace. Now, what is a log analytics workspace? All of this um all of these tools that I've mentioned, right? They collect um they collect metrics, right? They collect metrics, they collect logs, they can help you visualize it. But where are all of these things stored? Where are all of these things stored? Now we have um uh, three tools, right? Or three services. Yes, let me say services. Three services that Azure has provided for us to store such things. The first is the log analytics workspace. The next is, of course, the storage account, which we got introduced to, I think, in the previous video or the one before that. Then sometimes you can store them in Event Hub. If you want to do anything such as streaming, when you want to maybe for streaming purposes, basically, you can store it at the Event Hub, right? Now, all of this helps us to not just store. The log analysis workspace help us to not just store, but also to analyze um, whatever has been stored. Right? Whatever log that has been stored in the workspace, it will help us to analyze it. Right? So it's from here. They said it's a data store in which you can collect any type of data from your Azure, blah blah blah. It helps you to manage all your logs in one workspace and also analyze or audit. Basically, you can analyze, you can query the workspace and you get results, right? So, um, this is the log analysis workspace. You have to also create it. When you create it, then you cannot incorporate it with with your other resources. Then get the logs from there and then you can analyze. For the workspace, you can analyze using a language called the Custo Query language. Custo Query language, which is in short KQL. So if you're being asked what is the um, type of language used in a log analysis workspace, it is the Custo Query language. It helps us to run queries on our log analytics workspace to get valid information and all of that. So it's just basically what I have today regarding monitoring, logging, and all of that. When we start doing other things, when we get into more hands-on, we now start bringing all of this into play. We'll be able to, if we have more resources to actually monitor, or if we have more resources to run query on, then we can now start seeing some of these things, and then we'll see how they work in practice, right? And then subsequently, with time, it may not be part of this series, but I will try as much as possible to make separate videos on how to actually work with some of these things so that you see how it is done. But I am one thing I can assure you is that with time, I'm just trying to lay a foundation of all of these tools. I'm trying to get us familiar with some of these services so that when we start using them in our day-to-day projects or in our day-to-day when we get to sessions where we start taking on projects or where we start doing a lot of hands-on and a lot of practicals, it will not be new or it will not sound strange to us again because yes, I would have said one or two things about it. I would have covered one or two things about it. Then you have your Microsoft Learn where you can search for all of this. You can read more. I can't um, go so in depth. This is part of a series. I'm not doing a video that focuses on all of these tools one by one. If it was the case where I was working on the videos on these tools, I think I'll be able to go more in depth. But it's basically like an overview of monitoring when it comes to Azure. With time, we'll start working with these tools one after the other. So if you've enjoyed today's video, please do well to like the video. And if you're yet to subscribe to my channel by now, kindly subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, turn on your notification bell so when I post the next video, you'll get it and you'll watch and gain one or two things. So I'll see you again on the next one. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.